The Road to Autonomy is presented by the Road to Autonomy Index. The Road to Autonomy Index is a rules-based equity benchmark index that measures the performance of a basket of global companies that are involved in the development and commercialization of autonomy. Institutional investors and fund managers are watching megatrends that are shaping investment opportunities today. These megatrends are creating thematic investment ideas and opportunities for forward-thinking investors. We believe that one of the biggest megatrends today is autonomy. That's why we created the Road to Autonomy Index, the world's first and only pure-play index to track the thematic investment opportunity in autonomy. Follow the Road to Autonomy Index on your favorite finance app by simply typing in the ticker Autonomy. To learn more about the Road to Autonomy Index, visit roadtoautonomy.com/index. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to have Vinay Shet, co-founder and CEO of Teleo. Vinay, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Grayson.
It's wonderful to have you here because point blank, very simply, Teleo is building the future. We have a labor shortage and you're allowing your customers, such as Tomahawk Construction, to build the future. Before we get into what you're doing for your customers, Vinay, how is Teleo approaching supervised autonomy for the construction industry? It's a different approach that some of your competitors are taking.
Yeah, that's correct. So what we do at Teleo, Grayson, is we retrofit a large variety of machines like wheel loaders, dozers, trucks, and convert them into supervised autonomous machines. What that means is that the operator is no longer sitting inside the machine, but they're sitting at a comfortable control station and controlling multiple machines at the same time.
How are they able to control multiple machines at the same time? Is there an AI wizardry behind it, or how are you able to achieve that?
Yeah, so we have combined two different types of technologies. One technology is what is called tele-operations, where a person sitting remotely can directly control the different axes of the machine and drive the machine around. And the second is what you've heard a lot about in the media, which is around autonomous operations, where the machines run autonomously and do various tasks. We blend both of those concepts in to have what is called a supervised autonomous machines, where in certain parts of the entire cycle that the machine operates in, the operator is directly controlling the machine. For example, when they're engaging dirt, they would directly teleoperate the machine. But then when the machine goes from point A to point B, that is when they can set the machine into an autonomous mode and the machine autonomously goes from point A to point B. And when the machine is in that autonomy mode, the operator switches to a second machine where they can then go and engage dirt on the second machine. So by switching between teleoperations and autonomy, and by switching between machine 1 and machine 2, or maybe even machine 3, they're able to control multiple machines at the same time.
Do those individuals that are controlling those machines, do they have to have a background in construction? Do they have to go through a certification course, or do they just have to know how to drive a tractor?
So I think they just need to know how to drive a tractor. Like, we've made the experience of operating a machine from a remote control station extremely intuitive and very simple. What that means is if operators have experience operating a machine, when they get behind our controls, they're able to operate the machines incredibly quickly and just the same way as they would if they were sitting in the machine. We bring back to them all the sensory input that's required for them to be effective at doing their job. They can see completely all around the machine. They have 360-degree vision around the machine, which means no blind spots, right? So they cannot see, they don't have any blocks in their vision. They can listen to the sounds the machine makes. They can hear the engine revving, and they can even get some degree of haptic feedback in their seat that gives them a sense of what the machine is actually doing. So with all of this stuff, the operators are able to be just as effective, when they're operating remotely the machine on the site.
Is there latency issues at all when, say, perhaps there's an operator in, let's say Silicon Valley and there's a deployment in Naples, Florida? Is there a latency issue there?
So we have spent a lot of time building a technology stack in a manner that we contain the latency to very small numbers, so that when from the operator's point of view, as they're operating the machines, it feels real time. They are able to run the machine just the same way as they would if they're sitting in the machine itself.
Why start with supervised autonomy, not full-time? Because you have a background in autonomy, so you clearly understand it. But why start with supervised autonomy for Teleo?
Yeah, so I think we've, as you know, as a community, a lot of work has happened around in the autonomy space, right? I mean, like we began with autonomous cars, autonomous trucking, even autonomous large machines. And what became clear in the last almost coming up on a decade now is that getting to a fully autonomous anything is an extremely difficult proposition. The challenge that we as a community have faced overall is that be a robot to being able to handle a wide variety of scenarios, and all of the wide variety of scenarios that they encounter comprehensively is not trivial to build, right? And that is the thing that companies like Waymo and Cruise now are finally cracking the nut on, and they're able to deploy autonomous cars with nobody behind the wheel in specific cities. But now what's been happening is there's been a reshaping of autonomy. There's been a reshaping of how companies approach autonomy. And it's happened in a couple of ways. The first way is you change the ODD, or the operating design domain. Right? What that means is you say, oh, public streets are too complex. There's cyclists that cut in a path. There's children that run on the roads. There's other things that happen that only happen in a on a busy a local road. So let's go to a different domain altogether. Let's go on a freeway, for example. The minute you go from a local road to a freeway, the shape of your curve, the scenarios curve changes. Certain things will almost never happen on a freeway. You will never see a bicyclist on a freeway, right? Or you might never see a child on a freeway. It's never, but it most likely you won't find those things on the freeway. And so it changes the shape of the curve that you encounter in those scenarios, in those settings. So that's one way. The other way is the approach that we are taking, is that you bring in a human in the loop, where you actually have a human operating the machine for certain parts of the time, and then for the other parts, the simpler parts, you have the machine run autonomously and bouncing back to the human when the machine needs help. Right. So this reshaping of the narrative of autonomy is I think what is going to result in real applications showing up in the market, and it's finally coming to a point where customers can really use autonomous products in some shape or form.
It's creating value, and I do want to dovetail on that. I was in a Kodiak truck recently in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and there was a bicyclist on the highway. The Kodiak truck did a very good job of slightly moving over for the bicyclist, but I have been in an autonomous truck and seen a bicyclist on the highway. So Andy and the team at Kodiak, well done on fixing that edge case. So you're operating the construction. You're obviously creating value there because we have a labor shortage. Some construction sites are smaller than others. Some are very large. There's examples. There's a lot of master plan communities, and they go on for thousands and thousands of acres, if not miles in some cases.
Yep.
How are your autonomous vehicles being utilized in these environments? Is it to haul gravel, to haul dirt? What are the main use cases they're being used for?
Yeah, so we are seeing a wide variety of use cases that our customers are pulling on us to go deploy this technology in. I can give an example of Tomahawk, which is in Florida, where they're using this technology to move dirt for a residential community. What the specific work they're doing is that before even the buildings get built up, they are leveling the ground to a point where it becomes, it is flat, and preparing it for constructing the actual buildings itself. So what this means for our customers is that they have an excavator that is actually digging up dirt and loading a number of trucks. And these trucks then haul this dirt to a different location, which is where it gets smoothened out and the ground is filled up. Right? And this is a repetitive operation that runs for many, many months, if not a few years, where millions of cubic yards of dirt is moved and the ground is prepared for the eventual construction of the residential properties. So as you can imagine, in this setup, the trucks that move continuously, they need to operate all the time, and they need to make sure that we have the correct spacing between the trucks over time, and that it's an efficient operation. So this is where a customer told us that they had a hard time finding people to run those trucks and fulfill that operation, and that's where we come in.
I want to put some numbers to this. The contract, you're starting with 3, and then you're working your way up to 12. That's a very big deployment for a construction site. Are you seeing these larger deployments from your customers? Because in the early days of autonomy, okay, we'll do a one-off here and say, hey, look, we're embracing innovation. Okay, yada, yada, yada. But now we're actually seeing real practical meaning value creation. Are you seeing that with your customers where they want to have multiple Teleo deployments inside of a construction site?
Yeah, I think that's happening more and more as we expand our footprint and we speak with more customers. What we're seeing is that, as I mentioned earlier, labor is the number one problem that our customers flag to us for themselves, right? So they are simply unable to find enough people to do the work that they have signed up to do, right? And across the board, they have more work to do than they have people available, to the point where our customers tell us that they routinely park their machines because they're unable to find people to operate the machines, right? And that's a void that Teleo helps them fill, where we are in 2 ways. The first way is that because we take the operator out of the machine and into an office-like setting, that step alone we think can help our customers bring in more operators into the fold. Right? Imagine a world where we can attract more women into the industry. Imagine a world where we can bring in the younger generation who's attracted to gaming-like experiences into the industry. Even folks who may be unable to physically get up on a machine due to any physical disabilities could get behind our controls and comfortably operate a machine. So it really expands the available pool of operators for our customers to tap into to be able to go do the work that they've signed up for. Right? But the second, going a step further beyond that, we are also letting the operators control multiple machines at the same time, which means for the first time, they're being more productive than they've ever been. And so with both of those vectors, we're directly getting at the heart of the problem and helping our customers address it.
You're also creating jobs.
That's correct.
At the end, we do have the labor shortage. We're going into potential. We are in an economic slowdown. We're going into potential recession, and Bank of America came out and said we're going into a labor-light economy.
Yeah.
We're going there. You're a solution so the construction companies can still go because the interest rates over 8% for new homes, they're not selling and they're not hiring. They're going to have to do something. You're allowing them to fill that void there. So how does this work from, let's just say I'm Acme Construction Company and I call Vinay, hey, I want to deploy Teleo. Do you go on my Deere, my Komatsu, my Cats, or do I have to go to Cat and get this all retrofitted? How does that work?
Yeah, so we are working through a network of our dealer partners. So we have dealer partners that we've announced now in the US, in Canada, in Europe, and we also announced recently in Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia. And these dealer partners work closely with us to help us install our kits on our customers' machines. Again, no matter what make or model, no matter what vintage and what type of machine. And they help us also to make sure that the customer is happy and provide the required support that they might need once it's deployed.
What's in the Teleo kit? I'm going to keep referencing the old days. Everybody knows, there's a LiDAR, there's a radar, there's a camera, but you're on a construction site and there's things called rocks. There's dust, there's weather, there's climate issues. What goes into the Teleo stack, and do you have to harden it for those environments that are not really friendly to electronics?
Yeah, so you should, just to maybe even step back for a second, right? Both myself and my co-founder came from having spent multiple years building self-driving cars at Lyft. And prior to that, both of us were at Google for building Google Street View. And so we have a lot of experience building out technology that goes on vehicles for self-driving cars or for collecting data and having it survive for thousands of hours in harsh environments. And so really you should think about the stack that we put on these machines to be very similar in flavor to that of a self-driving car itself or a self-driving truck, right? In terms of the components that go in there. But beyond that, you're right. In this particular domain, we have to harden it. It has to be hardened to the point where it can survive for thousands of hours, so multiple years in very harsh environments. And these environments include high temperatures or low temperatures, lots of vibration, lots of dust. And we have to be able to survive all of those things and can continue to provide service to our customers for years to come. And we have done all of those things at this point.
Is that sold to your customers on a service model? Do you just sell them the hardware and then you support it? What does the business model look like?
It's a mix of the two, where we sell them parts of the system, and then we to help them run the system operationally. We also charge them a subscription model. So it's a mix of the two.
Well, so you had that there going. What markets do you see? So you're in Australia with position partners. You're in the United States, in 8 states. You're in Europe. You're in Asia. What do you see as your biggest growth markets? Is it really just kind of following the labor shortage globally, or where do you see that?
I think it's exactly that. I think it is absolutely following the labor shortage globally, and we are seeing a lot of the same levers that attract customers in the United States are also the same levers that customers located elsewhere are also pulling on us, right? So first of all, not enough people who want to do this work. Not even if you do find the people, they may not be skilled enough to go put into a very expensive piece of machine and let them operate that machine, right? In some situations, we have seen that customers actually they have to ship their operators like hundreds of miles away from their home city to go spend a week at that location and go operate the machines and then fly them back. And so all of these things line up, and it's clear that the market across the board, across the world, is hungry for a solution that can ease their labor concerns.
I'm assuming you're mentioning the Western Australia market, where they go there for a week, 2 weeks, they come back, and then they have to go back to work a week later. They don't show up, And there's that huge there's that huge labor issue there. You're looking at this. So let's say you look at Western Australia. It's a very remote area. Will your retrofitters fly in for a period of time, retrofit your customers' equipment, and then leave them fully operate? Is that how that works? They fly in with the equipment and set it up?
Yep, more or less, right? So again, like we work with our distributors. So our distributors on the ground already have locations in those areas where the customers operate their machines. So we're able to leverage their existing networks where to go and do this type of work where we can stand up these machines and and have the customers operate them and provide support once they go live as well.
Do we get to a point where you have a contract with Deere, you have a contract with Komatsu, you have a contract with Cat, where right off the factory line, your customer, I'm just going to use the term Acme Construction Services, can order it with a Teleo kit? Is that where this is eventually going, or do you always see yourselves as a retrofit company?
Possibly, it's hard to say right now. I mean, we can speculate about what the future looks like, but what is clear right now is that our customers are hungry for this solution, and the solution that we have right now to put it on the machine is one that works for them, and as of right now, that is our primary vector of growth.
How long does it take to retrofit the vehicle, and what goes into? Do you have to calibrate it, or do you have to connect it to the GPS, 5G, 4G? What does it look like?
We have spent a lot of time making sure that not only is our overall solution robust and ruggedized, meant to survive in those harsh environments, we've also made it such that it is simple to install and simple to service. I think those are the three key parts, right? So robustness, simplicity of servicing, simplicity of installation. And that is really giving us dividends right now in that bringing up new machines has become increasingly fast for us, especially as we work with our dealer partners. It's for us, it's a matter of a couple of days to bring up a machine that we have worked on and bring it back into service for our customers. So our customers experience very little downtime on that machine.
You're optimizing the efficiency. I mean, I'm assuming there's got to be a pretty big backlog here.
You mean for us, right?
Yes.
Yes, we do. So as you mentioned, we just announced last week, we signed up 42 new machines that we're going to go out and start retrofitting and start bringing back and commissioning over the next several months. These represent +8 customers for us, around the world, and which is actually very exciting because now we're deploying this at scale and putting the solutions increasingly in our customers' hands.
You don't have just customers just in the construction industry. You also have in the mining industry. How do you see that, let's call it the mining side of your business and the construction side of your business complementing each other?
Yeah, so for us, really the technology that we have built is truly universal. It works across a wide array of machines, wheel loaders, dozers, excavators, trucks, across a wide variety of manufacturers and vintages. And what that means is that we can go where our customers want us to go. And as you have mentioned in the past, we are currently deployed in a quarry in California with Tycut Construction. We are deployed in a concrete plant with JR out in Ontario, Canada. We are deploying right now with Tomahawk in a residential site earth moving job on trucks. And so there's already a wide variety of different use cases that we're going after with our technology.
When you look at hauling opportunities, so you have the Canadian oil sands, you have Imperial Oil up there that they're hauling barrels of oil out of the sands. We had the big deal with Exxon and Pioneer Resources, and they're going to obviously have to cut labor to pay for that deal, even though shareholders got diluted 14%. Darren Woods, I digress on that point, but shareholders were diluted. Well, you look at opportunities like that since they're while the world is on a sustainability kick, the oil markets are flowing, the capital's flowing in. We're drilling more than we ever have. The International Energy Association said we're going to hit peak oil in 2025, so there's still a lot of upside. Will you look at deploying in situations like that where these heavy Cat and Deere long haulers are used? Will you look at those opportunities as well?
So we will go to where our customers want us to go, right? So if that is an opportunity that the customers want us to take a swing at, we absolutely will look at those markets as well. And again, our distributor partners are some of the largest companies who have deployed a lot of these solutions in the market already, and so we would continue to work with them to explore those new use cases.
Let's say exploring new use cases, your business starts to mature. Will you eventually look to go fully autonomous, or will you always stay in your current model of supervised autonomy?
So I strongly believe in a model where autonomy augments people, and I think it's really about making people more productive and making their lives more comfortable. I think if we do those two things, make them more comfortable and make them more productive, we win. right? And so I think that is the mantra that we are following. And so for us, when we talk about autonomy, we talk about autonomy not as a standalone product, but rather as a technology that makes operations, existing human operations, better and faster and more productive, right? And so the way I see the future panning out is that yes, we would keep injecting more and more autonomous behavior into our customers' machines, but we would still have a human component there supervising that in a way that they can always intervene and direct the traffic of how the machines operate.
The supervisor is there. It's a really smart concept, especially because you're looking at the size of the equipment, the weight of what you're moving. In some cases, you're in sensitive areas around the world. Yeah. Is there a distance where, give me a scenario, let's say you have a global Fortune 500 company that's operating multi-sites around the world. Let's just use simple numbers. They have 100 Teleo systems deployed across the globe. And let's say they're headquartered in Houston, Texas. Can they run all the remote operators out of Houston, or do they have to strategically place them around the world?
That's a great question. I think it depends really on the quality of the connectivity that they're able to get on those sites. Last week we announced that we were at this Up Summit, and we had an operator sitting in Dallas, Texas, simultaneously operate 3 machines. 2 of those machines were in California, and the third machine was in Finland. And that was over 5,000 miles away. Right, so we were already, last week demonstrating how a single person in Texas can operate these 3 machines at such long distances. So it is the technology, allows a lot of things to happen, but it really depends on the use case and really depends on what the customer wants to do. If it really makes sense in their setting.
I've noticed a lot of your marketing materials, and you've done some really interesting stuff where you're at a trade show or you're at a convention, and you allow the potential customer or the individuals interested to remotely drive. Yeah. Is that one of the key ways that you're building trust with that potential customer? Look, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, here's the technology. Please sit in the seat and try it.
I think it helps a lot. I think this is an industry where people like to touch and feel things before they end up buying it. And so when we are able to put our customers in the seats of the operators and let them actually experience the product that the way that their operators would experience, it definitely helps in building trust and in getting them to get behind this concept.
They're going to get behind the concept because they're going to have no choice because the economic situation we're in. You could have forecast this maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 if you're I'm going to be generous there, but what was the real inspiration for Teleo? What did you see in the market with your co-founder said, okay, here's the opportunity?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my co-founder and I have worked together for over a decade now. We were at Google for many years, building out Google Street View. He was building out the cars, and I was on the software side. The same relationship at Lyft Level 5 as well, where he was the head of hardware, building out the self-driving cars, and I was on the software side and the product management side. And so it became clear to us from our vantage point that technology had progressed by leaps and bounds in the last decade. Like the advent of deep neural networks in the field of AI, the availability of better and hardened sensors, things that had to be custom designed, just even a few years ago, was now available off the shelf in terms of the components that you would use to build a system like this. And so technology had advanced significantly, and yet the domain that most self-driving car companies were operating in, it seemed to us it was the wrong domain, simply because of the unbounded complexity that a public local street presents. And it felt like if there was a way in which we could reshape that autonomy problem, then we would be able to take all the technology advancements and actually bring it to market sooner. And as I mentioned earlier, that reshaping has happened across the market now in different ways. Some companies limit the ODD by operating within a specific subdomain, whereas others like us, we are doing both. We are limiting the subdomain, obviously, but also bringing in a human in the loop, especially because the machines that we operate are low velocity machines. And so therefore, teleoperations is a viable strategy in those cases.
Are there any regulatory issues? Because obviously on the passenger car side, there's a lot of regulatory issues. We read about them on a daily basis. But from where you're sitting, from what you're doing with the construction and mining, are there any regulatory issues that are concerns as the business starts to grow?
So there are compliance aspects that we have to address, especially as we go into markets in Europe. But these are primarily private properties. These are properties that are owned by our customers. And really there isn't, as far as we can see, a lot of regulation at this point in time that governs how those machines operate in those private properties. But absolutely, we have to be compliant with a number of things which we are working towards.
You're working towards great things. I'm excited to see what the future holds for you. in your opinion, where I'm going to ask you, what is the future of Teleo?
I think the future is amazingly bright. As in, and I am a strong believer that the next decade is going to bring almost a revolution in robotics. I think you've seen the revolution that's happening in AI with generative AI and so on. And I think what is despite all those advances, though, that generative AI today yet cannot work in the physical world, it cannot yet build the physical world. In my view, what Teleo is doing is building a platform to bring AI into the physical world, right? And I think this concept is absolutely huge. And I think we, are in a position to grow that platform so that we can truly start not only improving people's lives and making their lives better, but also helping to reshape what the future of work looks like in the physical world.
The future of work's going to change. You're going to create jobs. There's no other way to say it. You're going to have the human there to supervise it. Construction jobs, we need more of them. And a lot of individuals don't want to get dirty. They don't want to do that, but they can go into a nice air-conditioned office and they can operate one of your trucks and learn a new skills. Perhaps there's an organization, and maybe it's SAE or another organization, that certifies, let's call them safety operators for your technology. And all suddenly you get a certification, and that becomes a really great way to upward mobility. But this has been a really fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what Teleo is going to build next. No pun intended on that one. As we look to wrap up this insightful conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them today?
I think it's a lot of people don't realize this, but the work that happens in the fields of construction, mining, agriculture, farming, logistics, it is so broad, and it actually forms the underlying bedrock of modern society. And oftentimes we forget about that. There's quarries and there's plant operations that happen in plain sight. You drive on a freeway and there's a plant right there, and there's people working there operating with large machines, and they're actually doing the stuff that keeps the lights on in our homes and lets us lead the modern life. And really, this is the base layer. And it is amazing that these folks work 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day in harsh environments. And to me, being part of a story where we can make the lives of those people better, make them more comfortable, and also yet move the needle forward and help us as a society be more productive. I think, to me, that's just a phenomenal thing. I really hope that people appreciate this concept of how this bedrock layer of our economy is really helping us lead our modern lives.
Teleo is creating jobs. Teleo is building the future. They're filling the need, as Bank of America coined, the labor-led economy. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Teleo. Vinay, thank you so much for coming on the Road to Autonomy today.
Thanks for having me.
If you've enjoyed listening, please kindly rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Road to Autonomy, or email podcast@roadtoautonomy.com. The Road to Autonomy podcast is produced by the Road to Autonomy LLC. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect those views of the Road to Autonomy, its subsidiaries, its shareholders, directors, investors, or partners. The content discussed on this podcast is for informational purposes only. It should not be taken as legal, investment, tax, or business advice. Nothing is a recommendation that you purchase, sell, or hold any security or other investment, or that you pursue any investment style or strategy. The content of this podcast is presented on an as-is basis with no warranties, express or implied, of any kind. Financial mentions about companies in the Road to Autonomy Index and discussions about the Road to Autonomy Indexes are for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon when making any investment decision. Furthermore, an inclusion of security within the Road to Autonomy Index is not a recommendation by the Road to Autonomy Indices LLC to buy, sell, or hold that such security, nor is it considered to be investment advice.